Welcome back to another episode of Inside Richmond, the city's pulse. I'm Lindsay Darnell, your host. It is 2026. This is our first episode of the year. It's a new year with new opportunities. I have Rodney Mayse, airport manager, and Jonathan Meade, president of Board of Aviation, joining me today. Guys, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So I wanted to get you on. You guys have some exciting news. You guys have underwent design implementations of a new terminal out at the airport. You have recently applied for another grant for construction. So do you guys want to kind of tell me a little bit about why does Richmond need a new airport terminal now? Let's start with that.
Well, again, my name is Rodney Mayse. I'm the airport manager. I've been with the city of Richmond 29 years. And of those 29 years, it's always been a dream of mine to have a new terminal building, not only because we need it. The current building is 80 years old and it's falling apart. It's not ADA compliant and it's hard to heat and cool. And so the first time that I can remember, we had the BIL grant. Part of that BIL grant was open the grant up to small airports to apply for the grant. So along with Butler, Fairman, and Seifert, their engineering consultant firm, along with the Board of Aviation Commissioners, we kind of all got together and went through and started our design phase. And then we hired LWC as the architect. And so that's how we got to this point, just basically out of necessity, the need for new terminal building, just due to age.
And you do have a lot of problems with that current building. It's 80 years old. I know, Jonathan, you presented at the Redevelopment Commission today, and you were talking about that you have water leaks. Yep. As Rodney said, the women's restrooms upstairs, it's not ADA compliant. What other issues have you seen in that building that is just showing its deterioration?
Yeah, there's been some water issues with, light rains and Rodney's having to clean up water in the terminal building. But, also it's, general impression. The building is 80 years old. There's only so much you can do to that to make it look good. And for a lot of people, especially, people that are looking to invest in our community and, bring investment dollars to the area, this is their first impression that they see. That's the first impression they see of this area. And it's not great. And there's not much you can do to that. There's not a whole lot of renovation that we can do to, try to make that look better.
Mm-hmm. Can you walk us through the history of this project? I know you said for 29 years, this has been a dream. How long has this been in the works, this current project? And how many times has the airport applied for funding of this project?
So this terminal building has been, just going back to Sally Hutton's administration, we had a team together for a design and kind of had a town hall meeting, I guess you could call it, and kind of thought we had a lot of investors on board, but unfortunately, just never came to fruition. So fast forward to when this BIL came out, was it in 2021, I believe, was the first grant round, 21 or 22.
Yes, yeah, 2021.
So we were able to apply up to 5 years. And so the first year we didn't quite have everything, and we didn't have the architecture, we didn't have the plans in place for the grant submission, but we went ahead and proceeded anyway, just to get our name in there, to let them know what we're anticipating this, and we need this, and what do we need to do to get ahead of the others. And so after a lot of planning back and forth with our engineering company, it was decided that it was a must to have an architecture to get this plan taken care of. And so we would have more of a shovel-ready project for the FAA. And that's where we're at now. We got our plans. I think they're about 60 to 70% done, probably a little farther along now since our last meeting last week. So.
Okay. And then what would a new terminal mean for Richmond Municipal Airport and the community?
Yeah, it'd be a big deal. there's a couple of things that we really wanted to accomplish with the design of the new terminal. One is just giving that facelift, to the community, as people are flying in for the first time, seeing the community, that first impression that they see with the airport. We wanted something that was, going to be eye catching and something memorable that people would see and, talk about. Another goal with the project and, what this does for the community is create another venue space. One of the things that we wanted to do is make sure that we could turn this into an outdoor venue that, other people other than just, pilots at the airport could use. We are building a big patio on the back of the airport terminal building so that, we can have events out there. In years past, we've done, up until recently, we were doing some candy drops on Halloween. We'd love to do more events like that, get the community involved, get them out there. This is Richmond's airport. It's not, somebody's clubhouse. It's the communities.
And I think there's a lot of misconception too about our airport. I think people think just hobby pilots are using it and renting it, but there's actually flights coming in. Can you tell us a little bit more about what this traffic that's coming in is, who they are?
Sure. So the airport goes far more beyond than pilots. So, and I'll just talk a little bit about the airport. So we have two runways. We have runway 624, which is 150 feet wide and it's about 5,500 feet long. And then 1533 is 75 feet wide. It's also 5,500 feet long. So the weight is 92,500 pounds for everyday use, and occasional use is 102,000 pounds. So most of our aviation is geared towards Jonathan also has an airplane at the airport. He has a Bonanza, and so it's a single piston engine. And then we can go all the way up to a Gulfstream is about the largest I've seen. And then, so that's the large business jet. And then you have your Citation, which is a medium size. And then you have, we have an Eclipse jet base there, which is the smaller version of the jets for the business use. So the airport stays pretty busy. We sell about 12 to 15,000 gallons of underload lead and about 25 to 30,000 gallons of jet fuel a year. So the airport is active. It is busy. This time of year slows down, but in the spring, summer, it stays pretty active.
Now,
There's lots of different types of traffic that come into, we do get businesses that are coming in, potential investors that are coming in, via business jets or sometimes just small private planes. Mm-hmm. But also flight training is something that happens, training, the next generation of pilots. That happens at the flight school that we have at Richmond. And then also we see a lot of traffic coming from, other state flight schools like Lift Academy out of Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. And then there's also, air ambulances, critical medical care that can only be provided, by, going to another part of the state or the part of the country that our airport allows us to support. So all of that type of traffic is coming in and out of Richmond.
And it is getting used. I just wanted to really get
Definitely.
that out there. Yes. So can you tell me a little bit how the airport is funded?
Yes. So the airport has its own budget. So we have self-sustained. So I think we're one in the three in the state of Indiana that's self-supported. So we get all of our revenue comes from farm grounds, rent, hangar rentals, and fuel sales. And so we have an annual budget of about $583,000. And so we're able to pay all our bills, and we have a pretty good cushion right now in our cash balance that we've been able to save over the years for this new terminal building project.
And there's an important distinction in how the airport runs and how it operates. There's a part of the airport that's really more of a federal asset than, just a community asset, the air side, the runways and, having those up and going. The FAA does have an interest in making sure that our runways are in good condition and that they're operable, just from a federal government standpoint. So we do get money from the FAA for maintaining runways and building new runways and that sort of thing as well.
Just know money coming from the city of Richmond's budget is going towards the airport, correct?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
we are 100% self-sufficient from that aspect.
Okay. So can you talk about this 1.4 million grant? Where does it fit in the overall estimated 2.3 million project cost, and what other funding sources are committed?
So the $1.4 million grant that we applied for is a competitive terminal grant that was part of the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed several years ago. It's a very large bucket of money that was set aside for building new terminal buildings and renovating terminal buildings all across the United States. And specifically, a small portion of that was set aside for airports our size to renovate and build new terminals. So this is the last year that the grant is being offered as part of that law. And so we are looking to, we are competing against other communities of our size for that 1.4 million. So, at this point, there's no guarantee that we'll get that grant, but we're hopeful, that, this being our 5th year applying under the same project for it, that we will actually get funding through that. We do have other opportunities, though, that we've been looking at. We are using some of our airport money that we have set aside for as part of the project. We do have some money already attributed to the project from the FAA that is ours, guaranteed to spend. The FAA, designates part of their budget for the Richmond Municipal Airport, and we're using that money to fund part of the terminal. And then we also have a private grant from a private individual for $200,000 to help us build the building.
Wow. That's amazing. So you were able to secure a private grant. That's awesome.
Yep.
Or donation. The grant requires matching funds from the city and state. How feasible is that for Richmond?
So we have the funds already, because we are spending some of the airport cash balance on this building. That counts towards our local match. So that's 100%. The local match is going to be covered out of the airport budget. And I'm not 100% sure, where the money from the state comes from. I know we get it from INDOT, but I don't know, what bucket that comes out of. But we've never had a problem getting it from the state in the past.
Okay. So do you guys have a plan B if this grant is not awarded to the airport? I know you kind of touched base on that at the redevelopment commission meeting.
Yeah, we are pursuing other options. One thing, that we've got this nice, big, beautiful new building. If somebody wants to put a name on it, we'll let them, for the right dollar amount. So we are, actively talking to people about naming rights of the building, to, put somebody's name on it. We also have several different areas within the building that, we could put people's names on, looking to do a donor wall, for smaller end donors, that sort of thing. And then, some other potential local funding sources that we're, going to explore is a plan B in case we don't get the FAA grant.
But I feel like, and this is just an opinion, is we have a good chance because like you mentioned earlier today, they already approved the design grant. You guys were awarded the design grant. So we probably do have good or better odds, I would say. I know it's not set in stone. We don't know what's going to happen, but fingers crossed, we're speaking it out that it's going to happen.
Yep.
So talking about grants, there's a lot of misconception about grants. When you guys apply for FAA grants, those are specific to what they can be used for, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Anything coming from the, Federal Aviation Administration, those are going to be earmarked directly towards an airport. Can't use those for anything else. And more specifically, they're earmarked for a project. Whenever we go to get a grant, even if it's money that the FAA has set aside specifically for Richmond, we have to say exactly what we're spending the money on and get approval to actually spend the money on that. We can't just, buy anything through FAA funds. Like, if we said we wanted to buy a Ferris wheel and put it on the airport, the FAA would not allow us to do that. It has to really improve the infrastructure of the overall nation's aviation system.
Yeah. And so with these grants too, there's reporting guidelines that you have to show the proof that you are spending this money. It's not just FAA grants, it's any federal grant. You have guidelines that you have to follow and report each step of the project to them to make sure you're following what this grant was for. And I think there's just been a lot of misconception on when we receive a grant within the city that we can just use it on whatever, and we can't. There's certain grants that we apply for that are specific to certain projects. So I just really wanted to get that out there to clarify.
Yeah, and even, the airport does have its own cash balance and its own budget. So anything that the airport revenue generates has to stay with the airport. So the city of Richmond can't take our funds and use it for the library project or, which that's county. So, but for a street project or any other project within the city, they cannot take airport funds. That's a federal law that anything generated by the airport stays within our budget. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of another thing we wanted to get out there, just to let people know that we have guidelines that we have to spend our money on. So, and if we didn't apply for this grant, another city's going to. The money's going to be spent, so why not spend it here in Richmond?
Exactly. And that's one thing that I know we had this conversation talking about the multimodal or the bike path loop project. If we did not apply and receive this grant, another community within Indiana would have gotten that grant, and it would have went there to help, beautify their area for healthy living spaces. So it's really important that, yes, when we can apply for these grants for our city, we should do it so we can help, bring our city up and continue that momentum of bettering economic development, the quality of life, quality of place. I think it's very important that we realize that if we're not doing it, another community is.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's up to the pilot where they want to spend the day. Mm-hmm. They'll get their passengers as close as they can to their destination. But if Richmond Airport has a nice terminal building, this pilot may say, hey, we'd rather go to Richmond, get a rental car, and go on to your destination. For us, this makes more sense. It's a nice place to hang out. Restaurants are close by. We have a courtesy car for the pilots to use. So we want to have a nice facility for pilots to want to spend the day with us, instead of going to another airport. And even the terminal building we have now, we've had pilots that choose Richmond because we have nice long runways. We have, much of a crosswind because we have intersecting runways, 624, 1533. So there's not much of a crosswind there. So that's why they choose our airport, because we have multiple runways to choose from. So adding this new terminal building is just another attraction that pilots will choose us.
And let's talk about the new terminal building. I've seen the renderings. You presented some of the renderings today. What are some of the key features planned for the new terminal building? Will it be larger, more accessible, more modern? I mean, what is that one thing that's just going to pop out to pilots, do you think?
Well, I think you hit the trifecta there. It is going to be larger. It is going to be more accessible, and it should be a statement, that people will see. The waiting area for passengers or pilots just hanging out is going to be 3 times larger than what we have today. It's all on one floor, one story. No stairs are going to be needed. So no ADA issues for people who may have mobility concerns. One of the other big things that we'll get with this is because our airport isn't staffed 24/7, but the aviation industry works 24/7. So we will have after-hour access for pilots to be able to get in and use restroom facilities or the pilot lounge facilities to relax and stuff in between flights.
Yeah.
One thing I'm looking forward to is a nice conference room. So we can't even have our board meetings at the airport because we're not ADA compliant. So we have to meet at the city building, which is okay, but it's an aviation board. We should be meeting at the airport. So I'm looking forward to bringing the meetings back to the airport with a nice new conference room. And but like Jonathan touched on, there's going to be a lot more nicer amenities, larger space. Right now, everybody's kind of in one little area. So if we get more than 2 or 3 aircraft on the ground at one time, it gets a little crowded in there. Because we only just got a couple chairs and a couch and two rooms that's usable.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, and I've been out there before when Congressman Shreve and his whole crew had come in, and it is kind of tight in there when you get everyone in there from the city and from his office. I think it was Brad Barrett was out there, I believe. So yeah, you guys do need some more space, especially when you're having that many people come in. How is the design process going, and what role has the architecture firm played?
It's going well. The architecture firm LWC, I believe they're about 60% done with the design. So, like I said, going well. They're really in charge of all of the, making sure the building is constructible, structurally sound and fits on the footprint that it's meant to go in. And then also with just the architectural design of the building, making that look like that statement piece that we want, that impressive structure when people are flying in.
I would say the statement piece that I saw from the renderings are the huge glass windows right there facing the runway. I think that's going to be a gorgeous view that you're going to be able to watch every day, Rodney, since you're there every day. But I think that was a really high statement piece, and I really do like that design. So kudos to them. How might a new terminal affect local economic development or attract new businesses?
So again, it goes back to that, being the gateway to our community for, people that are investing in our community. And so giving that good first impression of our community, that we care in our, we care about our community. We care about what things look like and, what facilities are available. And I think that plays a big role in, people making a decision on whether or not, this is the community they want to put their dollars in, or if it's another community that they might want to put their dollars in.
And that's something I think we really need. We need to really focus on our economic development. It can create more jobs. It can create more revenue for the city that we're able to get more projects done as well. Are there any environmental or community considerations tied to building a new terminal?
No, there's not. So we have had an environmental study done. That's one of the requirements of getting money from the federal government for any project. So we did have a full environmental assessment of the project done prior to beginning the design, and there were no issues found with that. And the only community impacts are going to be positive. It gives us a better venue for having events out at the airport, and not just necessarily airport related events, but community events, that we can have out there.
I know we've kind of touched on this. This grant comes through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, BIL, as you were saying. How has that federal program shaped airport projects nationwide?
There have been a ton of projects nationwide that have been funded like that. There were, and forgive me for not knowing the exact dollar amount, billions of dollars that were put into that, just for airport terminals, not just for communities our size, but also for much larger airports like Indianapolis International or Dayton International. So there have been quite a few projects that have been able to be funded because of that. There have been a couple of airports our size in Indiana that have gotten funded for terminal rehabs in our area. I don't remember exactly which airports those are, but there has been money coming to Indiana from that already.
Is there a lot of smaller municipal airports like ours in our vicinity, or are they kind of further away?
The closest to us would be Connorsville.
Okay.
And then we have Winchester. Randolph County has an airport. There's an airport in Newcastle. So then we got airports in, there's one closest to us in Ohio would probably be Darke County, maybe, Versailles. So there's quite a few small airports.
Oxford. Yeah, Oxford, Ohio would be, to the south, closest airport. So.
I didn't realize there was that many close to us.
Mm-hmm.
So, why not us? Why not us get this grant?
Right.
Exactly.
And I've heard over the years, like I said, I've been there 29 years. And when an investor comes to look at Richmond, for example, they check out the airport first, even see if we have an airport close to our city or within our city. And if we don't, they go into the next city that does. So that's where we circle back to the economic tool. It's infrastructure, checkups. I mean, they come and check on they fly in, check on projects that they're working on. Or when we had really cool foods, they built really cool foods because we had an airport, and I reached back out to them quickly to let them know what services we had to offer and, the size of the airport, and thanked me for getting back with them quickly. And that's how they made their decision to build here in Wayne County. So it's definitely a huge economic tool, and I can't hammer that enough, And you may not directly use the airport yourself, but it goes far beyond to those who don't fly. It could, the most of the corporations that are here have some type of flight program, whether they have their own flight department or whether they use a commercial, or not a commercial, but a charter flight. We have a lot of charter flights that come in and out of the airport, and most of the time they're checking on projects or coming to their facility to check on things. A lot of people use the airport. And, you may drive by and not much going on, but there could have been one just took off, one coming in. So you're not there, you're not sitting there watching the airport for 10 hours a day like we are. We know what comes in and out. And so it's like anything else, it's weather related. So if the weather's bad, we're probably not going to have many flights that day. But if the weather's good, probably going to have a lot of flights doing touch and goes. And we, due to the size of our runways, and, like I said, we have intersecting runways, so we don't have much of a crosswind. So it's popular for students to come over, like Jonathan touched on, it's popular for students to come over and do touch and goes, because a little harder to get yourself in trouble when it's a wide runway and a long runway.
Chances are, if you're flying American Airlines out of Indianapolis, the pilot or co-pilot on that plane has done touch and goes at Richmond.
Okay.
Because Lift Academy they feed Republic Airlines, which operates the smaller American airline jets out of lots of areas, but Indianapolis is one of their big hubs, and so a lot of airline pilot training going on.
Yep.
Now, you guys, I've seen this because I've been out there. You guys kind of have a little wall of fame of famous people that's actually stopped in at our airport as well. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting to see how many famous people. I don't remember all of them off the top of my head, but the founder of Wendy's, what was his name? Dave
Thomas.
Dave Thomas. His picture was up there. I mean, there was just so many. I was looking at all of them, and I was like, wow, that is insane to know that they've landed here.
Yeah, and most of the pictures on the wall, I think years back, Miami University had some type of grant that they would bring in celebrities, past presidents. I think Mikhail Gorbachev landed at our airport a few years ago. It ranges from, comedians to NASCAR drivers to Big Brother, contestants that's been in and out of the airport. So you just never know who's going to land.
Mm-hmm. It's very neat to actually know that. So I want to say probably the last thing I want to ask you is, what's one thing you think most people in Richmond don't understand about this airport project? And let's finish it with a bang so they get all of the information that they need.
I think the big thing that I'd really like people to remember is that this isn't the city, this isn't coming out of the city's budget. That yes, the airport is self-sustaining. We are, covering this, the cities or the local part of this project, and that, it's the FAA that is helping us with, part of this project to really support the aviation infrastructure of our nation. And whether you're using it directly or indirectly, quite a few people in this community actually do end up using our airport.
Do you have anything to tag on to that, Rodney?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
He did a very good job of summing that up. But main thing is just staying dry and not having water coming in our building. And so, like I said, it's not only a want, it's a need.
It is a need.
After 80 years, it's served its purpose, and it's just time to upgrade. And now's the time to do it.
Yep. All right, guys, I want to thank you for joining me and getting this information out to the community. I think it's going to be very helpful.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. That's Inside Richmond, the city's pulse. Make sure to join us next time.